All right. So today, Kauffman Scholars Alumni Association presents Researching Graduate School. So hopefully, you're thinking about attending graduate school, weighing your options and whether to be a full-time student, working part-time during your studies. So hopefully that's why you're here today. Otherwise, you're at the wrong webinar. Maybe click the wrong link, but that's okay. Stay with us, learn some things about graduate school. So our guest speaker today is Antoinette Redmond. She's the Director of Undergraduate Recruitment at the University of Kansas. Hello, Antoinette. I'm gonna bring up her beautiful picture here. So Antoinette is an experienced higher education professional with a passion for helping people navigate their personal journeys. She has assisted high school and undergraduates select the right college or university to align with their personal and professional goals. She attained a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Master's of Higher Education from UMKC. And out of all her experiences and accolades, her two most cherished titles are wife and mom. And so welcome, Antoinette, and thank you for agreeing to present on this topic again for Kauffman Scholars. We did this back in February, and we invited Antoinette back to present this to our scholars and alumni again today. So I'm going to stop my share and let Antoinette take it away.
Okay, so we will transition here. Okay, so welcome. I'm excited to discuss the ways that you should be preparing for graduate or professional school. And please know after this presentation and meeting, this PowerPoint will be available to you, as well as I'm here to serve as a resource for you. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me because I'm more than happy to assist you and help you through and navigate what this will look like for you. So let's get started. We're going to start by making a pizza. If you are probably wondering one or two things. One, okay, it's almost dinner time. Why are we talking about pizza? And two, how does pizza even connect to graduate school? So when we're thinking about pizza, we're also thinking about different types of pizza, right? Like you're thinking about, is it pepperoni? Is it sausage? Is it supreme? Is it vegetarian? Is it gluten-free? It can be really annoying to narrow down what pizza you should be getting when you're hungry. And so we're going to be breaking down the components of choosing a pizza and how when you narrow it down and you start to decipher the different parts of a pizza, it's a lot easier on deciding which one you would like to choose. So let's start with the foundation to a yummy pizza. Does anybody want to take a guess at what the foundation to a yummy pizza is?
The crust.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. So pizza dough, the crust, that's the foundation. If you don't have a yummy pizza or yummy crust, regardless of what is on top or what sauce is added, it's not very good. So this is what the type of mindset you need to approach when you are considering graduate school, because graduate school is not just an extension of your undergraduate experience. It will be a lot different, and it's important to identify the why. Why are you motivated to pursue this degree? Why do you have to pursue this degree at this particular time? And what direction do you want to go? And I'll take this time and allow Magoo to share her experience with choosing a educational program, a graduate school, and what the right time was for her.
Yeah, so thank you for allowing me the space to kind of share my experience, because it's, everybody's journey is different. Coming out of undergrad, everyone was like, I'm going to go to grad school. And I was kind of jealous because I didn't necessarily want to go to grad school based off of my bachelor's degree program that I went through, which was journalism. And I knew I didn't want to work in journalism or media whatsoever. And so I was kind of lost. And so I just started working, and I worked in higher education doing admissions and recruitment, and really enjoyed it. And really about 7 or 8 years later is when I decided to go back to grad school. And for me, it was more of a cost and a convenience for me. It was what's in the area and what is going to be the most minimal cost. And so I was actually working at a community college at the time that paid for part of the tuition at UMKC, they paid 80% of the tuition. And so they would reimburse me 80%. And so I said, that's a pretty good deal. And it was convenient. It was in the city, so I didn't have to travel far because it was an in-person program. And just knowing that I'd already worked in higher ed, I had the experience for several years. I could speak to that in graduate school. So that's kind of what my process was in figuring out when was the right time for me to go back to school and making sure it was going to be a program that would link with my future professional career goals.
Mm-hmm. And so perfectly leads into goals, understanding that why. Because if you don't have that solid foundation, when you're up late at night having to write a paper, studying for an exam, you aren't going to stay motivated, and you're going to want to give up and not do it. And there's a lot more work that goes into a graduate program and succeeding in a graduate program than at the undergraduate level. And so it's important for you to decide where is it that you want to go and what is it that you want to do, and is it necessary for you to pursue a graduate or professional degree in order to get there. So let's move on to the second ingredient in the yummy pizza. Does anybody want to take a guess at what the second ingredient is? I'll give you a hint. The sauce. That's the second ingredient into making a yummy pizza. And you can have so many different sauces. There's Alfredo, marinara, barbecue sauce, so many different sauces that you can choose to put on the pizza. And so when you're selecting a sauce, whether you're in the store, you're selecting it online to have a pizza, you're looking at the ingredients, you're looking at the brands, you're looking at the price. And with the same critical eye, you need to be researching graduate schools the exact same way. So you need to ask yourself, who offers the degree? And not just a makeshift. So if you're looking at pursuing a master's in human resource management, you don't just want to go to a school to pursue a master's in business administration. You want to find a program that is a school that's offering the program that you're looking for. And then you want to look at what are the opportunities to learn more about that program. Like she had introduced earlier, I'm a director of undergraduate recruitment. So I meet with high school students, I meet with transfer students from different universities and community college to talk about what the KU School of Business has to offer. And there are recruiters just like myself in almost every university in lots of different programs. So you want to ask them, when is the application deadline? What are the admission requirements? What are the job outcomes? So when I graduate, when other students have graduated from this program, where are they getting jobs at? What is the median starting salary? Those are questions that you have every right to be asking the recruiter at that particular university or school. Because it's important for you to, like the Lego is here, to start these building blocks, because everything that you do up to this point is going to build into having this beautiful structure that you have created with all the Legos and the pieces. So the third ingredient to the yummy pizza, does anybody want to take a guess at this?
Maybe cheese?
Maybe cheese, yeah. Toppings, exactly, toppings. So we have our crust, we have our sauce, and now it's time to select the toppings. So one of the things that I recommend is, again, there's so many different avenues, is to decide what type of topping do you want to put on there. So when you're trying to decide what program or you want to go into, it's important for you to do some research. And one of the ways that you can do that by adding another topping is conducting informal interviews. If you have heard of this, great, but if you've not, this is something that was crucial in my professional development. I met with about 10 professionals when I was looking to transition to a new job. And I would just sit down with them and I would ask them questions about, what do you do? What is your educational background? What do you enjoy most about your work? What is the most important part of your work? And this allowed them to talk about themselves, which everybody loves to talk about themselves and everything that they have to offer. But it also allowed me on the receiving end to figure out if I needed to go to graduate school and pursue a different certification, or if I just needed to look at my resume and highlight the various experiences that I already have. So this is a great way for you to build your professional network, but also to identify a avenue that you should take, because essentially I took these people out, it was $3 for coffee. That's a cheap way for you to get this information and not have to spend thousands of dollars when you pay in tuition to a particular program. So when you are thinking about reaching out, so you identify someone or you identify several people that you would like to meet and speak with, I recommend you draft an email. Do not draft a whole long email explaining why you want to meet with them. Keep it brief. The reason why it's important to keep it brief is because if you were on the receiving end of that email, are you reading the whole thing? I know I'm not. If it's not in 1 or 2 short paragraphs, okay, it's fine. I'll read it some other time, and I never get back to it. And so keep it short. And you're most likely to get a response if you just ask 1 or 2 questions. And so those questions could be any of the things that we highlighted on the previous slide. And then you want to make sure you thank them. Be polite. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you reading this email. And then make sure you proofread your email before you send. There are so many times where students and also adults and professionals send me emails and there's typos. Or even on the other side, I send those emails and I'm like, just take the time to read through the email and ask even a friend to read through the email, because sometimes when you're working on something for a very long time, you don't catch things. So asking somebody else to proofread it is perfectly fine. And again, I'm more than happy to serve as that resource. So if you want to send those emails to me, let me know. I'm more than happy to help and assist in that way. Another topic that we're going to be talking about when you're looking at another ingredient of what comprises a yummy pizza is going to be a place to cook. You need a place to cook the pizza, because you can't just have raw dough. I know as much as all of us love cookie dough, we can't just eat raw pizza, right? With the toppings and the crust. And so you need a place to cook the pizza. So after we've done all of that research and we conducted informal interviews, we want to start preparing the application. If you're looking on the slide and you're like, Justin Bieber, what is this? Well, I'm sure you guys have probably heard his song of, what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, I would like to tell you to reframe your brain and say, what do you need? What do you need for this application? So some of the application requirements are very robust, and they're going to require you to submit a lot of different things. But you want to make sure when you're looking at those particular schools, you create a checklist. Does this school require recommendation letters? Does this school require a resume? Does this school require I submit a separate application? What does that look like? And creating in that research process, you want to create a list of application documents that you need to submit. Because oftentimes when I'm looking at applications, it's not that we don't have capacity for students or that these students aren't eligible for our program, it's they didn't submit it. They didn't submit a completed application. Whether that we have asked for 2 recommendation letters and they've only submitted 1. Those are automatically thrown out because it shows that you don't have a real interest in our program because you haven't done your due diligence to ensure that you have all those application materials. So when we're looking at application portals, I know a lot of you have submitted questions and concerns about where do I even start? There are a couple of places when you're looking at professional schools, like if you're applying to medical school or law school or dental school, they have their separate portals specifically for that industry. And so typically students will have to submit an application through their portal and an application through all of the universities and colleges that they're looking to apply to. So when you're looking at those particular programs, make sure you're looking at where do you need to submit your application. Because a lot of places where a lot of times students get hung up on they have to submit an application in 2 separate areas and they don't. And they only submit it in one and not the other. And so make sure when you're applying to a graduate program or a professional school, where do you need to submit your applications and what are the requirements for those? I'd like to pause at this time to answer any questions that you may have about what we've discussed up to this point. I'll just pause for a couple of moments. Okay, we'll keep on going. If you guys are with me, please use the reaction button that's at the bottom of your screen. That would allow you to either do a thumbs up or a round of applause so I know that you're staying with me. All right, thanks. Thank you, thank you. Oh, let's keep on going. So one of the other components that usually stops students in their tracks of wanting to apply to multiple schools is the cost. So some of those application fees can range from, $40 all the way to $150. And that's a lot of money to be applying and submitting applications to not even know if you're going to be accepted. So when you are having those one-on-one meetings with those recruiters to find out more about the school and the research process, make sure that you're asking them, are there any fee waivers available for students? Can I attend an event and get a fee waiver? Can I submit any of my financial documents? So you can see that I am a college student and I can't afford all of these application fees. Ask for those fees. The worst thing that you can be told is no. But the greatest thing is yes, and you can end up saving hundreds of dollars by just asking, is this an option at that particular institution? And then when we look at testing, there's so many options. How do you know? How do you know which test you're supposed to take? How do you know which avenue you're supposed to take? Generally, if you're going into a professional school like medicine or becoming a dentist or going to law school, they are going to have specific tests that correlate to that particular school. So you're going to look at the dental admissions test, the medical college admissions test, or the law school admissions test. It's very, very specific. And then a lot of the other programs that you guys may be considering. So if you're considering a counseling program or a master's in business administration, you're going to be looking at two different avenues of taking an exam. That can be the graduate reading exam, or that could be the graduate management admissions test. All of these tests are essentially gauging the same thing. It's just a matter of, are you preparing for this? So I recommend that you get a book from the library and you just go over the test. Go over the test. How is it being presented to you? What type of way are they asking these questions? Because in all fairness, I believe that everybody can do extremely well on these standardized tests, but it's that crunched time component that allows students to have anxiety towards these tests or to be fearful of taking these tests. But if you start to familiarize yourself with what are the questions that are being asked, what are the type of questions are being asked, how are they asking those questions, does this relate to what I've been learning in my undergraduate career, I know that you'll do well in there. This is not an endorsement at all for Magoo, but it is a very successful tool that I've seen and I've recommended to students that you are able to download it on your phone and just while you're waiting in the car, while you are hanging out at home, just going through questions. And what happens is you select the exam that you would like to practice on, and they will walk you through that exam. And it will also give you tips on, hey, this is, I've seen that this is the pattern that you keep missing this type of question. Focus here. These are the tools to prepare for this particular question. And so it's a cheap way to be able to prepare, because as you guys may or may not know, test preparation companies charge a lot of money. And this is a really economical way to be able to study and do well on those exams. And the third thing that I will talk about is don't miss deadlines. You don't want to miss an application deadline. You don't want to miss a scholarship deadline. You do not want to miss these deadlines, because oftentimes these schools may be receiving hundreds of applications and they only have 30 spots. Or they may be making all of their decisions by their priority deadline. So you do not want to miss a deadline simply because you did not research and you did not prepare all the application materials that were available. And the thing about it is, when you're completing that application, they ask for your payment. So if you don't submit a completed application, you may be throwing hundreds of dollars out the window simply because you missed a deadline. So please make sure you're thinking about this and you're being conscious of the deadlines that are available and the deadlines that the schools put out there. So I recommend you create an application timeline. So you do this by each program, you put the list of the application materials. What do you need? And when is the deadline? And this could be, I love Excel. I work in Excel every single day. And so that may be a great place for you to put all this information in. It could be a Word document that has all of this listed in a table, or you can use sticky notes. Whatever method works best for you, do it. Do not change up the method and try to adapt to something else that will not work for you. Choose a method that works for you. Create this application timeline to make sure, again, you're staying on point, you're staying on task to submitting your application. So the final ingredient to a yummy pizza is, drum roll, you. You are what makes this pizza yummy. So it's not about what everybody else is doing. It's not about what your friends are doing, your family's doing. When you were making this pizza, you were putting your love and your heart into this. And so it's important for you to just really think about how that relates to the application process and how you are going to show your personality and all the traits and greatness that you bring to your application. Because up to this point, when we're submitting our application, it's just your demographic information. When we're submitting your transcripts, that's just telling them what classes you've taken and how you've done in there. When you're submitting your resume, that's just talking about your experiences that you have. That doesn't really communicate who you are as a individual. And so during this time, I recommend when you're preparing a personal statement, you want to take the time and you want to ask, what are they even asking in this personal statement? Do they have an essay prompt that I need to make sure that I'm responding to those questions? And then these are some of the tips that I have below. So as you see here, no typos. I purposely spelled typos wrong because sometimes in your brain, you see that no typos, it reads automatically to you. But in all reality, it's spelled wrong. You want to share your story, share who you are as a person. Why does this program interest you? Who are the faculty that you see at that particular institution that you want to work with? How can you contribute to the research that they already have? Like I had mentioned, follow the instructions. And then it's really important because I know I did this in college, that sometimes I would wait to the last moment, and it was before it was time for me to submit a paper. And I would be, staying up all night trying to get this paper cranked out in a fast way. And I didn't take the time to really organize my thoughts. And sometimes I was lucky where I was able to really produce a great paper. And, I excelled in that. And then other times my professor saw right through it and was like, what were you doing? You had, 2 weeks, you had a month. So I really urge you to create an outline that leads to your draft, and then a second version of that draft to your final statement. Because you do not want to take this lightly. Again, there's a lot of time and money that you're pouring into finding the right graduate program, that you really want to take the time to explain who you are as a person, and again, allow them to see the greatness that you bring to them. You may be required to submit a recommendation letter. Again, to show who you are as a person, as a student, as a worker, something along those lines. So these are some of the tips that I recommend for you. Give your recommenders notice. If you have a deadline of May 1st, you do not want to ask the person that's writing you a letter on April 15th. 2 weeks is not sufficient because you do not know what their work schedule looks like, what their personal schedule looks like. You do not know their obligations. So if you know that your deadline is going to be May 1st, I would recommend you let them know by April 1st that your application deadline is going to be May 1st, but you would like to receive it by, let's say, April 25th, so that you know that all of your application materials are all together. And that would allow them time to prepare and write an excellent letter for you. But then if they don't submit it, it allows you time to follow up and say, hey, can you please submit my letter? The application deadline is right around the corner. A lot of students think if I go and get a letter, recommendation letter from someone who has a fancy title like CEO, executive director, that is going to guarantee me a spot in the program. And that is not true. You want somebody that is really going to talk about all the great things that you bring to the table. And it may not be somebody with a fancy title, and that's okay. You just want to make sure that you are getting someone that is speaking about all of your accolades and your accomplishments in a very prophetic way. You want to make sure that the recommendation, you want to make sure that you are following the instructions that are set forth by the school. So if they say you need 2 recommendation letters, one needs to be submitted by someone who knows you professionally, someone needs to be submitted by someone who knows you academically. That doesn't mean go get it from mom. That doesn't mean go get it from her best friend. That means getting it from a former boss or one of your favorite teachers. You really want to make sure that you are following instructions on who they want to receive recommendation letters from. And how many do you need? A lot of times students think that because I submit, 3 recommendation letters, even though you asked for 2, that's going to give me a better chance. No, it's not. It's not at all. When they say 2, they're only reading 2. So when you are adding that additional work for yourself and also for additional someone who's recommending you, don't do it because they're only going to read what they require. And so if they say 2, they mean 2. And so where does your recommender need to submit the letter? So sometimes they need to submit a physical letter. So they need to mail it in. So one of the things that I recommend, especially if that's the case, is that you give them a envelope that's already stamped and it's already addressed to where that letter needs to go. Because you don't want them to be scrambling to find the right address, and not everybody carries 50 cents around, so they may not be able to pay for the stamp, but it would be easier to just put it in their mailbox if that was available. And then after they submit a recommendation letter, send them a thank you note. Thank them for taking time out to write this, because when people are spending time to write this letter on your behalf, they don't take it lightly. I know I do not. When students ask me to write them a recommendation letter, I do the exact same process as I recommended for a personal statement. I start off with a draft. I start off with an outline, then I move to a draft, and then I move to a second draft to make the final recommendation letter, because I want to make sure I don't have any typos. I want to make sure I'm really speaking to the accolades of the student. So it's a lot of time and energy that goes into these letters. So send them a thank you. And if you're able to provide a gift, do that as well. And the last phase, we made a whole pizza, right? We have a crust with identifying our goals. We put on the sauce where we are identifying and researching various programs. We put on the toppings where we're conducting informal interviews and we're ensuring what does the application process looks like. So now that we've gotten into a program, it's time to enjoy and embrace and celebrate yourself for this awesome accomplishment that you have achieved. But also, we need to start thinking about how we are going to finance this next endeavor. And so there are lots of ways in graduate school to pay for school. So when we talk about graduate teaching assistants and graduate assistants, essentially what those means is when you're a graduate teaching assistant, you're in the classroom. So usually you're partnered with a senior or tenured professor that will help instruct you with teaching, usually undergraduates. A graduate assistant usually is working in a various office around campus. So a lot of graduate assistants I have seen have been in like student life. So you'll see them over there, or in residential life. So that's an opportunity. Those are opportunities available. Employee tuition reimbursement. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, where it allows you to go back to school, but your employee pays into that education. So if you are looking to transition, this may be a great thing for you. Transition from being a college student to a working professional. You want to get some work experience under your belt and then go back to school. Your employer may pay for it. Scholarships. There are some scholarships that are available to students, and I'd recommend you go specifically to the school, ask them what scholarship opportunities are available to you. And then loans. There are going to be loans that are available for you to finance your education. Again, as you know, don't take out more than you need because at some point in time you will have to pay that back. But these are the ways that you can really finance your education in an economical way to make sure that you are getting to that next step, into those goals that you're wanting to achieve that we identified at the very beginning. And so now I would like to turn it over to you to answer any questions that you may have regarding graduate programs or schools.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. This is a great time. You're welcome to, turn your cameras on and unmute yourself if you have questions. Use the chat function. But really great information. Thank you so much for all of that, Antoinette, and for coming back and joining us and presenting this information to our scholars and alumni.
You're welcome.
So what do you think someone should do if they have like a low undergraduate GPA and they want to get to a rigorous school? How does one go about that?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways that you can address that. One of the ways is by getting work experience, because you can say, okay, I'm not the same student that I was 2 or 3 years ago, and they'll look at what have you been doing? Have you been able to progress in your particular career? The second way that you're able to do is go back and retake classes. Most universities have grade replacement policies that if you didn't do well in a class, meaning you received a D or an F, you can take that same class again and replace that in your GPA. So that it basically makes that D or F void and it replaces that with that higher grade. And so that's another way that you can beef up your GPA to be able to apply for those competitive programs. The third thing that I would recommend is that you, when you're applying to these programs, ask the recruiter, are they going to recalculate your GPA? What do I mean by that? Some institutions don't consider your general education requirements. They may only want to look at your science courses or only want to look at your math courses or only look at the last 2 years that you were in your major courses. So what are they actually calculating in determining your GPA? Will allow you that opportunity to figure out which avenue that you should pursue. Great question.
Hi, Antoinette. First, I wanted to say thank you so much. And I was wondering if you've ever helped or advised a student who's considering maybe getting a master's degree out abroad, like outside of the country?
Yeah, so interesting enough, my little sister is in Nottingham over in the UK, and she is getting her master's degree over there. And so it was a whole new world for me because I've just been working in the United States and working with international students looking to come here. I think it's a great opportunity. One of the things that is really cool is that she received a ton of scholarships because they wanted her to go over there. And she, as a master's student, is working on a research project in sports management with her professor. And the end goal is for them to be published. And so I highly recommend it. A lot of their admission requirements are going to be very much the same because like the GRE, the GMAT are universal tests. Those aren't just specific to the United States. So if that, they may require that, but specifically for her program, they just were looking at an application, they were looking at her GPA, and they looked at a resume. Those are the only things that they considered for when she was applying to the program. I will say on the sibling and also my mom being stressed out, it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming because we didn't know where she was gonna stay. We didn't know how far it was away. We couldn't go visit it and we couldn't really speak with the recruiters over there. So everything that she did was all online. And it wasn't a expedited process. It was like, okay, well, we think we're gonna give you this scholarship, so hang on tight. And then I want to say maybe 3 weeks before she was supposed to go, they're like, oh, we're giving you these $5,000. Hope you're still coming. So everything that we talked about, you still want to start preparing, looking at the university, seeing what they have as far as admission requirements, but know that the pace and the timeline may be a little bit different. But they're still like, is there a particular program that you're looking at or a specific area that you're wanting to go into?
So I'm a double major in business administration and Portuguese. So I I was supposed to go abroad next semester and perfect my Portuguese. So I'm hoping they have a business school there that's really good called Nova.
Yeah.
So I'm just glanced at it, but right now it's a crazy idea, but I kind of want to see if it's actually possible in the future.
Yeah. So what's so funny is working at KU, my supervisor is a finance professor and he speaks Portuguese. So he would love to connect with you because they are looking for students and he studied abroad and has a lot of knowledge about that. But one of the things when you're looking at business schools, there's an accreditation called AACSB. That stands for the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. So if you're looking at business schools around the world, this is the highest accrediting body that is worldwide. Only the top 5% of business schools in the entire world have this accreditation. So if it has that accreditation, when you come back to the United States to work, they're still going to recognize that degree.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I had a question about recommendations. I've been looking at applications and some of them may say, like you mentioned in your example, one may say professional, one may say academic. Well, I graduated almost 4 years ago. So my recommendations, the people that I would feel comfortable asking for a recommendation would be somebody that I work with. And I haven't dealt with any of my professors in almost 4 years. So is there any recommendations that you have for how to get over those types of hurdles?
Yeah, I would ask the person that is receiving the application, like, hey, I've been out of school for over 4 years and I haven't maintained those connections. Can I use a boss? Can I use a colleague? Can I use, who can I use? Maybe in an organization, so like Kaufman, can I use somebody in this that knows my knows me, like your guys' coaches? Can you use somebody like that? That is where I would ask them that question because like you said, 4 years is a long, long time. There's a lot of things that happen and they may have retired, they may have left the university and it's hard to get a hold of them. And so I would just ask that particular recruiter at that institution, what are our alternative options? But typically what I have seen is that if they're looking for the academic side of you, they're looking for someone to talk about your ability to perform in the classroom. So if you were in that, and instances, some people have went back and when they were in college, they had a part-time job. So then they'll ask that supervisor because they're like, hey, like we balanced her schedule and she was able to work and she did phenomenal at both. So I would just ask that question directly to that university.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm currently an undergrad in education, and I'm considering getting my master's in an adjacent field. I would want like an English master's fine arts. So I guess I just would want your thoughts on like mixing and matching fields like that.
Yeah, so in my bio, I was business. That's where I majored in business and I moved over and got my master's in higher education. I mean, there are so many, regardless of which avenue you're in, there's so many transferable skills that apply. So in business, learning how to communicate, learning how to present, learning how to write, learning how to bring my authentic self is what I learned in my degree. And then when I moved into higher education, I was able to apply all of those things. So I think with your education focus and wanting to move to English, it's just going to make you more marketable because you're hitting two different industries and you have lots of opportunities. And then honestly, COVID-19 has forced a lot of companies and organizations to really become innovative on who they're hiring, how they're hiring, and what are the requirements that they're asking of people because we have to respond. And so there has been a unique blending of industries that I have seen that has really interested me. So I think it's great. I think it's great that you are looking to pursue something. The one thing that I would recommend is, what's your end goal? What is it that you want, getting your master's in English, what is it that you want to do? Are you wanting to teach? Because then if you're on the salary pay scale, if you have a master's degree, you get more money as you progress. Like, is that what you're wanting to do? What is it that you want to do? But I have no problems with it just because I did it.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Thank you.
I have another question. You just mentioned what is your end goal? I personally feel like I haven't mastered what it is specifically that I want my end goal to be. Like, I know what I kind of want it to look like. I know what types of things I like to do, but I feel like most of my jobs have taught me specific things, but I'm not sure that maybe I don't want, like how you went from business to higher education. Most of my jobs have always been business oriented. My degree is in business administration. And naturally, I'm thinking to go get a master's, an MBA, but I work at KU Medical Center, and my supervisor has an MPH, and I'm not exactly sure like which I should go between, because there's aspects of both that I want. So if I'm not sure, do you recommend like maybe holding off on getting the degree until I have a better understanding, so it's not like a waste of time and a waste of money? Because that's kind of what I've been toggling over for the years that I have, because I'm not exactly sure and I don't want to waste the time and then have to go back, or, you know, not motivated to finish.
Right. One of the things that come to mind is, I don't know who said it, and it's an old proverb, but one of the things that can never be taken away from you is your education. So that's one thing that I've taken pride in. So you're not ever wasting money or wasting time by furthering your education. So I would recommend for you to start with, and when I talk about end goal, I should have done a better job at clarifying that. I'm not saying figuring out what you're doing for the rest of your life. Like, absolutely not. Like when I tell you I have not figured that out, and I'm not trying to figure that out, I am just in, like, for the next couple years, this is great. Me being able to talk with students, I love it. This is exactly where I want to be. I'm not saying I'm gonna be in this career for 20 years, for 10 years, for 5 years. If that's where it leads me, great. But I don't be bound by time constraints of saying, okay, like I need to know this for the rest of my life. The thing that I would recommend is like talk with your boss and ask them, why did you decide to pursue the MPH? Why did you decide that that's the career field that you wanted to be? How has that benefited you in there? Because one of the things, particularly if you want to work in the hospital, that they're looking for that. Like they're looking specifically for do you have that accreditation? So if that's where you want to remain for the next 5 years, or you like what she's doing and you're like, I could totally do that, then ask her those questions. Have that informal interview. When I say that, I went on 10 different interviews, and they were from all different industries. So I went, I've been working in higher education, and I went and I interviewed people that have been working in corporate. So I interviewed somebody that's working for a electrical company. I interviewed somebody that owns his own construction company. I interviewed somebody that's still in higher education. So I went on all these different ways, just because that's the one thing that is great about business, and even is that there's so many transferable skills. And so explore all your options. Ask your boss, and then see if there's anybody that you can connect to within there, and they will just help guide you. And to me, I don't know if you believe in God or if you believe in a higher power, but I had a dream. I had a dream where I was supposed to go and what I'm supposed to do, and that was to be in higher education at this particular moment, at this particular time. And so that solidified it for me. That I was like, okay, I'm only going to look for jobs in higher education. So I'd really just tap into what is it that you want to do. Contact various people in those industries. And if you don't know, Kauffman has a huge resource. They're a huge resource where they're able to tap into different people from different industries that may be retired or currently working. So that's a great place to start as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if you're anything like myself, things always come up once the call ends or a couple days later. So this PowerPoint will be available. I'm always available to answer any questions for you, or to just assist you. Or if you're like, hey, do you know anybody that's in this particular area? Just let me know. I'm here to assist you in whichever way possible. And I'm so thankful that you tuned in today and that you were able to join us and learn more about graduate and professional schools.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for the great questions and interacting with us. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope that you'll join us for our future virtual events coming up next week and in the coming weeks. So everybody stay safe, take care, and have a great rest of the week.
All right, bye.